The broadcast is live. Here
And
we go.
The broadcasters we're not sure about.
I have no witty intro. None. None. So I'm like, so I'm just.
He's just a salty old YouTuber.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll save that for when we get some people. I'll tell you where that came from. Some of those speculating channels, and it's not that bad of a drama because it's on Instagram.
Yeah.
But apparently, there's another show like this with some younger guys, you know, in that some corner I never even heard of YouTube, and Comic Tom and Jim Mint Collectibles, who I don't know if I'd ever heard of before. I think I checked out one of his videos.
That name sounds familiar, but I don't know if I don't think I followed.
Well, the Marvel preview that was the first appearance of Mark Morales that was going for $9,000 graded. After telling everybody and getting all hyped up and nobody listening to anybody that knows what they're talking about, got busted because these four guys who looked pretty young, like in their 20s, they held up the Marvel's previews from like 3 months before, opened it up, and there was Mark Morales like in 3 or 4 pages. The real first appearance. So, yeah, then I'll go ahead and tell the story, you know. But so the guy who did it, I think his name was Kingdom Comics. Very cool, very chilled out, very Lebowski about it. He made a video on the Instagram. He's got his flat screen TV, and he shows the evidence, and that's it. He's just saying, do your research or don't listen to these guys. I got on there, and after years of YouTube, I've seen people get burned. I've had actual people talk to me feeling like an idiot for spending a lot of money, like on Swamp Thing 25. That is not the first appearance of John Constantine. I got videos way back, like 2016 back, where I'm trying to warn people.
I find it funny when people, like, first of all, collectors need something to collect. That's all this is about.
Yeah.
Collectors need something to collect. It's like a compulsion. They want something to collect. And if you give them something to collect, they will. But saying like the preview version, like, is the first appearance is like saying the trailer to Star Wars is the first Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's a commercial.
Yeah. Well,
it's a commercial.
In there, in the comments, that's what I'm getting at, right? Yeah. So in there, in the comments, I put these idiots, a new crop of these idiots pop up. I mean, I typed it before I thought. I didn't mean it with any venom, but I have actual faces and conversations I've had with people. You know what I mean? So that's where that comes from. It's not so much the speculators, it's the damage done. You know, people make mistakes. We've all been there with something, you know. Well, apparently Jim Mint Collectibles went down through and was commenting on some people, and he called me a salty. Oh, he was, of course, a salty old YouTuber whose channel never popped, would have something to say. So I just looked at this and I'm like, are we not grown men here? Is what went through my head. You know what I mean? So I remember when I was young and dumb. Sure. Okay, no problem. So I just put in there, I was like, brother, my channel popped a couple years ago. I let it go. Not a big deal. And I wanted to go on more saying that you could type in the word Barbie, and there's little girls playing with their Barbie dolls that have millions of hits on each video. That's possible. Okay. But I didn't do that. I just said that you made a mistake, own it, apologize, move on, be a man about it. Because I've seen YouTubers go down. You know, he's lucky it's a comic book community, because there's been YouTubers like Mundane Matt and all this stuff went down. You know what I mean? Like, they had it all and they went down, you know. So it's not that big a deal, but I was just sort of like, salty old YouTuber. Not the old part bothered me. Maybe the salty a little bit. I'm like, I'm not salty. You know, I'm like, you know, we're not talking about Star Wars. You know,
he was abbreviated to call you soy. Yeah.
Now that's fighting words. Come on, man. Now, you know, I don't eat estrogen. It's okay. Well, never mind. I respect my wife. Yeah, anyway.
Salty old Sea Dog reminds me of do you remember which Pink Panther movie was it? Where Peter Sellers was dressed up. He was in disguise. So he was disguising himself as a as like a sailor with a parrot on his shoulder, and the parrot was inflatable. So as he talked, the parrot starts deflating. So he's got to pump it up with his arm.
Yes,
like and And he's walking up going, "Oh, I'm just a salty old sea dog back from the salty sea."
Yeah.
That's what I always think of. And then he pumps it up too much, and the parrot goes flying off. He goes, "Oh,
Was that
sorry."
was that the same one where his person who makes his disguises made him into a midget? And he
Yeah.
came out and he was singing the song. He was sitting there like, "Thank God for little girls," while he was dancing on his knees, trying to walk. He was like, "You can walk, you can do it." And he had a cane, and then he fell when he let the cane down.
If any of the viewers out there haven't watched the Pink Panther movies with Peter Sellers, go watch them. They're really good.
The one from the
I've
70s.
seen it a
The
long
70s.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that one.
That's
from
why I said Peter Sellers, not the remake with
Steve Martin.
Thank you.
Should have been. They should have gotten
Well,
Kevin
they're not-
Kline. It should have been Kevin Kline trying to do it.
He would be a better choice.
So we got Silver Age out here.
Dr. Silver Age is here.
Oh,
Hello.
just to put a cap on what we were talking about. Don't buy the Marvel's preview with Morales on the cover. It's not his first appearance. It's the one.
Especially for $9,000.
I saw it. I took a screenshot of it off of eBay. I mean, there was tons of them, and that one was graded. It was for $9,000. I think it had 2 bids and like 17 watchers. People were spending this. Who are these people that have that much money and no common sense? It blows my mind. That's what I'm salty about.
Yeah. It's just
especially when, to me, the mere existence of an Action Comics archive means that Action Comics #1 is now useless.
Well, I think well, it's been years, man. This is like my 10th year on YouTube, and I still remember my earlier videos. Feels like I shot some of them the other day, but I think it was like 2002 or something. I was down at Heroes Con, and it was actually the first time I spent in a panel. I would always skip the panels because I'm all about the books.
right.
And it was Dick Giudiero, some dude that was inking Sonic, not Terry Austin. And he was trying to sit there and talk like he knew the lingo. Like, this guy was so late he made Neil Adams look early, and it just like cringed me. Like, dude. And then it was like, I want to say it was the dude that created Green Lantern. I'm not sure. He was
It's Martin O'Donnell.
yeah. And
He was down there several times. Him and his
Yeah,
wife.
he used to do a lot
Really
of
nice
comedy.
people.
Okay. Well, he was there, and he was telling the story where he realized he got fired. They were like, "Go to Europe, have a good time." This is like in the 40s. And he was on the boat, and he said when he passed the Statue of Liberty, he realized DC or National Periodic had fired him. He's like, "Wait a minute," But then Dick Giudiero and everybody that was on the panel got nervous because he started going, "I don't understand you people." They were like, "You're wanting a comic when all they have to do is reprint it, and it's the same stuff." And they were like, "Whoa, wait now." And they changed the subject on the guy. He was busting his ability out of the water in front of everybody, and I'm just like, "Oh, somebody's got to be recording this. This is gold." I'm like, seeing Dick Giudiero, the dude from Sonic the Hedgehog, sitting there being like, "Oh God," it was awesome.
Collectors want to collect. They don't want it to be easy.
Well, I get where they come from. There's something about having something that was made, 60, 50, 30 years ago. You know what I mean? Your whole
I don't really care to collect stuff like that. I'd get the archive edition because I'm a reader. But one thing I thought of, it just came to me as I was.
Wait, I'm the thing. I'm the thing. That's all I'm saying. Claim your identity.
It might be the thing in the microverse.
I'm Sue because I got the hair.
No, you have to make yourself invisible.
That's fair too, man.
Hey, let's face it. It's fitting that Paolo becomes Reed. It is.
Yeah.
Mr. I'm studying JavaScript. Yeah, I'm studying JavaScript.
No, it's Java. JavaScript is something else, completely unrelated.
See?
Well, he's definitely not the Human Torch because he's over there freezing.
So anyway, I was looking at my my final order cutoff email to see last weekend to see what I wanted to order in my comic shop, and they're coming out with a facsimile edition of Spider-Man 101, the first Morbius.
Okay.
And I think I had just gotten a True Believers of that, and I was sitting there going, it's not even a very good comic in terms of story. I read the True Believers ones and was like, "Ooh, this is not a good Spider-Man issue." There's just a lot of weird writing and melodrama in it. And I was like, do I want to spend $4 on the facsimile edition of it? I ended up saying, okay, I will, because it didn't have a lot of stuff that week. I'm like, I want a facsimile edition of it. Just I'm such a sucker. And then I thought to myself, you know what I'd buy, know what I'd like to see, and I'd buy, and probably a bunch of other people would too, but not enough to make them do that. If they put out facsimile editions of the first, let's say, 2, maybe 3 years of Marvel chronologically. So you'd start with Fantastic Four 1 month, Fantastic Four #1, and then what was the next one to come out? It was probably 6 months later, I don't even know. But just put them out chronologically, where you could kind of experience the first 2 or 3 years of the Marvel Universe, sort of in the same time frame as it happened.
And you don't even have to recolor them.
Yeah, that's sort of what I did with an old series called Marvel Saga, where they were just and they chronologically put the Marvel Universe together. They pulled it would start with Fantastic Four #1, but they stuck in stuff from Alpha Flight. See,
that's just the stuff I don't like.
Yeah,
who just did that? Someone just did that for Marvel. I forget which indie guy. Who's the guy who drew Godland? Was it him?
Oh, Tom Scioli?
Was it Tom Scioli or Ed Piskor or someone like that?
Ed Piskor did the X-Men Grand Design and Tom Scioli did Fantastic Four.
Recommended to me, but I never picked them up. And look, I don't like how it looks like it's on notebook paper or whatever that was.
Yeah. What I didn't like about it is, to me, first of all, I know there's no Grand Design. I would rather have the actual history as it happened, because they pretend like all the retcon stuff was real. Like at the very beginning of the Marvel Universe, they had Mr. Sinister stuff. And I'm like, come on. There was no Mr. Sinister there's no Mr. Sinister for 30 years in the Marvel Universe. But according to the Grand Design, there was. So I'm like, I would rather see them tell the story of the Marvel Universe and then 30 years later go, and then Mr. Sinister was invented and stuck at the beginning. Right. I would rather see that sort of Grand Design as it actually happened rather than how it fake happened.
And then there's the years I would want covered. I would just, in real time, our time, I just want to see like 61 to like maybe 1990, stop at Infinity Gauntlet, in my opinion, and then stick in Earth X in there, for the ending there, in my opinion.
That would cut it off about 1970.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. I got you. Yeah.
Once I had a silly argument with a person who said he was a big fan of Nightcrawler, and I want to buy all the pre-Uncanny X-Men because I'm such a Nightcrawler fan. But there's no Nightcrawler. Yeah, but he's running around there somewhere. No, he isn't.
Who was it? Belasco? Who was that demon that ran around in the Savage Land and fought Khazar a little bit? And he popped up against the X-Men here and there.
Belasco.
Yeah. They're saying there was a little story there where it turns out Belasco turned out to be Nightcrawler.
That's in Earth. That's in Universe
Paradise.
X.
Yeah, Universe X, Paradise X. Yeah,
yeah.
And then when Belasco remembered he was Nightcrawler, he actually taped his fingers together. It looked like Nightcrawler's hands. Oh God! That's why I got a job like Earth X. That's all you need.
Earth X was well done.
Earth X was good, and then I think it was Universe X that they added something really cool to Moon Knight. It turned out he died in the pyramid, and he's been walking around sort of like a mummy that's come back to life, resurrected. You know what I mean? But he never knew it. I thought that was clever. There's some clever things in there, but like I said, Belasco ended up taping his fingers together to be Nightcrawler again. This second.
And when they had Madrox become Wendigo because he had one of his multiples,
that was actually I kind of like that. That you had multiple Wendigos all of a sudden. Yeah. They also said that Wolverine, without the adamantium, it's not so much. He's not a mutant. His healing factor is a mutation, but that's how humans were supposed to be before the Eternals and the Kree and everybody messed with the human genetics. Wolverine's a pure human with a healing factor, is what he is. Even the bone claws, we were all supposed to have them.
Yeah, but that's based on something that actually was in the comics. that was the original plan for Wolverine. That he was a real Wolverine and not a mutant. You'll recall in the lead up to Jean Grey becoming Phoenix. Yeah, the sensor when they're taking out the sensor reading in the space station, and he doesn't have the same register as a mutant.
Wait a minute, keep talking, Paolo. I want everybody to see this face.
No.
Why not? It would have worked.
I completely forgot the theory that Wolverine was an actual Wolverine.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Did they take this out of the Batman Odyssey book?
No, this was like in the 80s, early 80s. Is that right?
No, it's still 75.
Okay. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. That 80s is probably where I read it. You know, I was like,
Probably in Classic X-Men.
God,
with the extra pages that have the Hellfire Club showing up in the story.
I think I read it in one of the handbooks of the Marvel Universe or something. Yeah, I don't think yeah. Anyway, you got me. And now I'm trying to remember, but yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Matthew, this is a good segue into showing off some books.
Okay.
Oh, Matthew here apparently, hit the mother lode. He found one of them honey pots.
Nice.
Nice.
Is it first appearance of Miles Morales?
It's a deal. He got it for only $3,000.
Yeah. Anybody that's popping in now, you really need to catch the first 5 minutes of this on the rewind. It's quite entertaining, and it'll save you some money if you got $9,000 laying around. All right, what you got there, Jared?
Let's see. The first thing I got here on the top of the pile is Big Girls #6, which is the end of the first story arc, and I was a little disappointed in the ending. There we go. I generally have liked it overall, and I don't know if the series is continuing or not. I'm not sure. Like, this is definitely the end of the first story arc, and at the end it says, where is it? Somewhere in here. He says, apologies. He said somewhere in here, this is just the end of the first story arc, but sometimes you never know if these are going to continue or when they're going to continue. So
one of my favorite books ever done by Image was supposed to continue, but it never did.
Yeah, but hopefully this one will continue. Like I said, I enjoyed the series. The finale was kind of a big fight, which I'm sure a lot of people like. But to me, they kind of, what it was? The first 3 issues of the series, there was a lot of world building. And the last 3 issues of the series, there was a lot of sort of personal interaction stuff. And I think I just found the world building a little better than the personal interaction stuff. So I think that's all it was. It wasn't like it was, but it's been fun overall. I've enjoyed it. But like I said, I don't know when, if and I assume it's going to continue from the letters page in here. But when it's going to continue, is it going to be next month? Because I think this has been monthly. Is it going to be next month, or are they going to take a hiatus? You never know.
Yeah,
with these indie books.
Well, they got liquor and whore money now, so they need to enjoy it. They sold 6 books, man.
L&W Publications.
Yeah. So I got 3 videos in mind, and one of them is going to be about these books. I kind of blame you guys because I think I started out looking for some Mr. X. Excuse me. I started looking for Rex Monday, thanks to you, right? And this dude had like a penny sale starting on trades, but they all weren't starting for a penny. But I took screenshots to put on Instagram to show how much these were. This is like $106 worth of books that I got for $10 and maybe a quarter.
It's a good deal.
That's nuts.
Yeah, 40, and it only gets me because the Hellblazer trades. The first 3 that I ever got was at a library and Independence, where they didn't even put them on the shelves. They sold them as used books for 50 cents. They were brand new. Yeah, so now I beat that. These were 49 cents a piece. 3 trades of Hellblazer, and they are new. That's what gets me. They really are new. I thought the guy was like, I thought he was saying new, like I would never know that he never read them. They've never been open. Like you can't even. Yeah.
Who are the creative teams on those ones?
Well, the first one here, I think I read this one back when it came out. I remember I was still married the first time around, but this is Brian Azzarello with Good Intentions, Tim Bradstreet covers. This is one where I think he got out of jail and he went to Dog Lick, West Virginia. And that's one of the reasons I picked it up. Now, what I remember walking away from this, I mean, I've got something. I think I've got like, I have over 200 issues of the Hellblazer series. Anyway, but what I remember walking away from this one when I read it was these rednecks. I don't quite think those are the West Virginia breed. I think he's got the Hazard Kentucky breed. So I was like, okay, Azzarello, I'll let that go. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, they put him right in the middle of apparently a bunch of rednecks in Dog Lick, West Virginia, and I tried to look it up because West Virginia is like less than 10 miles from me, yeah. So I can't wait to see an English Gentleman. Right in the middle of one of the, biggest redneck towns ever. Right. I'm just hoping he didn't. I can't remember if he went for that Deliverance rapey vibe.
Yep.
This one is Mike Carey, Steve Dillon, Jimmy Palmiotti, and some guy I never heard of. On this one, I'm not even going to try to say that.
Sepulcher.
Yeah. But I don't remember anything from that one. I don't know if I read that or not. And then Reasons to Be Cheerful with Mike Carey. And I remember enjoying this one back when I read it. So I think most of these came out in the 2000s, the stories. Okay. I don't know when the trades came out. So those were all 49 cents a piece, man. I just wanted to get those good. Yeah.
Less than a single one of my comics. Yeah. See, the next one in my pile is the Savage Dragon 256.
Let me get you up there. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Some good stuff with Savage Dragon. Savage Dragon is always good. Yeah, you get a beaver shot or two in this issue too, because it's for mature audience. Because one of the plot points is his because this is Malcolm Dragon, who's like 19 or 20. I can't remember how old he may be 21 by now. And he's got a wife, they're newlyweds, and she's always horny. And there's just
I hate it when that happens.
And there's just all sorts of sex shenanigans going. It's been going on for a couple of years, but we really haven't seen it in a little while. But then in this issue, she made a point of not wearing underwear at one point, and we get a quick little beaver shot of her not wearing underwear at the very end.
Nothing like going for the soft porn to get the book sold.
But it really, like I said, I like it because it's just kind of like throws everyday life into a superhero's sometimes. So it's
we see this is one more reason I love this hobby. Only in a discussion about comic books, and when somebody says beaver, you have to specify: is it a beaver, B, a beaver, C, do we have a superhero who's beaver themed? D, do we have somebody hit by a beaver became a hero? On and on. You know what I mean? Like there's so many options just from.
Oh, you completely forgot the old series that Tim Truman did called Tom Beavers.
There we go.
That was a graphic novel, not a series.
Right, that's true.
That's still on my shelf. But also in this issue, we learned that Paul Dragon, matter of fact, they're doing he's doing a facsimile issue, 2 issues of the very first Savage Dragon stories that came out like when he was right out of high school. Graphic fantasy or something like that. It was in that was like the first appearance of Savage Dragon, and it really when he finally launched Savage Dragon, who's doing art? Savage Eric Larson is doing art on. He's doing everything. He has done all the art and writing on every issue of Savage Dragon.
This is why when he reaches that 300 issues, that I think he should be in the Service Club. He's done it. Even when Jim Lee did that issue, when they all switched books, early days of the Image, he even went back and did, like, I don't know what it was, like Jim Lee did issue 26. Well,
issue 13 it was.
Issue 13, Eric Larson came out the next month with Savage Dragon 13 by me. Like
13A.
Yeah. Just for that's why I think he should be in the 300 club.
Mm-hmm. Right. But like Paul Dragon was the dragon from that original like 2-issue series, and they brought him back in this just as sort of a supporting character. And violent things happen to him because like he's not the same. He's not like an alien like these Savage Dragons. He's like got his own little story going on, and he got his arm. The Savage Dragon has a healing factor. If Malcolm Dragon loses an arm, it grows back eventually. He doesn't have an instant healing factor like Wolverine does, but he can regrow a limb in like a week.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, man, the best healing factor that I've seen was in the Deadpool movies. When the second one, he was Winnie the Pooh in it with like the bottom half of a toddler. And they actually had him do the basic instinct leg crossing. You know,
but now, like, Savage Dragon continues to just be a good comic all these years, and it happens in real time. So that's what's interesting about the original Savage Dragon had died at some point just a couple of years ago, and his son has taken over the story. And lots of people come and go in Savage Dragon. Most of them, when they die, like this one. Must have been a couple miniseries. Yeah, there are miniseries like this one. This issue actually brings back.
Hold it up.
Mako
back. I know him. Yeah,
but it's not actually the same character. Mako died like 30 issues ago, and usually when someone dies in the Savage Dragon, they say stay dead. This is somebody else injecting himself with Mako's blood to try and get his powers.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again because I still haven't worked my way through this. But hey, I got this a couple months ago, the Max show from the 90s, cartoon, Sam Keith. But in an issue, or in the first, this is like the first 10 or 11 issues, maybe 12 of the series. But they had the Pit, Dale Killen's the Pit fighting the Max, and they replaced him with Miko, I think, in the cartoon. So you have an animated shark guy at least,
Mako. Everybody started after Eric Larson made Mako. Everybody started drawing shark guys like that.
King Shark popped up in like Superboy #9, like just a few months later, I think, the way I remember it.
It's funny when I hear the word Mako, I think about the actor.
I think of 20. I'm completely wrong. I think of 21 Rules of the Samurai.
I think of the Body Shop, the body and paint shop. He used to run commercials. I don't know if that was just local or anywhere.
No, it's national.
National. Chain. They're a chain of body shops.
Yeah.
To me, Mako is a Chevy Corvette.
MCO.
So just to be sure that I've got this right, Jared, was it you bragging on the Rex Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
I made a video about Rex Monday.
All right. Well, you're lucky we're friends, man. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is what started it. So I get this, right? It's the 4th edition, the 4th volume, right?
Okay.
So, I got it super cheap. And as soon as I took this one out of the box, my wife turns across the room. She's like, I've seen that before. I've seen that image, right? So she can't figure out where now. So I opened this up. It was a complex political religious story based around the Holy Grail in the 30s in France. So I opened this up. I read the first 9 pages. And I'm not saying that I'm lost. I'm just like, even though they had like a little 3-paragraph recap, I'm like, you got to start at the beginning.
It's not just in 1930s France. It's a different world where the royal families of Europe never lost power.
Okay.
So there's still like the Habsburg Empire, and there's all these European empires still exist.
Yeah. The only way that's possible is if there's no French Revolution.
There's probably no French Revolution.
Thus, having to go back to the front, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I picked up on. My first impression, even if I end up not liking this series, this man needs to be commended for his historical research. It's fantastic. I mean, that's what I like.
I don't know if they're in the trades, especially. I think they were mostly they may not have even been in the later Dark Horse issues, but in the earliest issues, they always had. In the back was always like 2 or 3 pages of newspaper like supposedly newspaper articles from the time that gave you a glimpse of what was going on in the world and the history of the world. Because like the big thing is in France, because this mostly takes place in France, and the Catholic Church, of course, is still powerful. There's there's the king who's got ultimate power, and then there's the Hall of the Robe, who are the nobles, and I think the Hall of the Sword, who are they're like parliaments, who are like the more common people, and it takes the two branches to override the king, but the one branch, the Hall of the Robe, all the aristocrats are always loyal to him.
Yep.
And this is a point where they're not as loyal to them anymore. So it's like
everybody just popped on in the middle of Jared's talking there. No, we're not talking politics. We're talking about Rex Monday. He gave a quick overview there. I'm sitting here thinking now people pop in. Great. Right in the middle of it. I'm like,
right. And also in this universe, magic is real, at least sort of low level magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Catholic Church keeps a lid on it as much as they can. And it's not illegal to do magic, but it's illegal to do magic for personal gain. So if they find you messing with magic, the church has got their own. The church is as powerful as the state too, so they have their own police force.
The part that made me crack up about the use of magic here, and if people don't find this funny, it's okay. It's one of the things you had to be there. We were messing around trying to find some movie the other night, and I can't think of the guy's name. He played. It's the dude that was with Kevin Bacon in Tremors, right? This guy's playing it. I think it's called Cast a Spell on You. It's a movie from 1991. It's got a bunch of people who ended up becoming famous, and it's film noir, and he plays a Sam Spade type, but everybody uses magic. And I'm like,
Right.
and here we go again. In France with the royalty. Fred Ward. That's why I love doing this, man.
My Friar Tuck, the super patriot, is still around in the Savage Dragon universe. Yes.
Yeah. And I almost called the dude Remo. I think that's the same guy played Remo.
Yeah, that alternate history just talking about reminds me of a series that was done by Brian Talbot. It's called The Adventures of Luther Arkwright. It's really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good series.
Okay, I didn't think about that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm
like I said, Rex Mundy is politics are half the story.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Especially at the end. At the beginning, it's more conspiracy thriller, but at the end, the scope just broadens until the end. They kind of mesh together all the politics and the conspiracy thriller stuff.
I'm so glad that I clicked on this comment because I thought he was saying horrible, not horror.
That's a horror.
I was like, dude, you just named Fred Ward, and now you're going to tell me now. Tremors was fantastic. It's a fun movie to watch, man.
Yeah, that was good. I never watched all the sequels, but
the Remo Williams movie was fantastic for what, but where I read the actual anyway. The movie was good. The TV show could have been done better. That came out of it. Yeah. Oh man!
Just imagine if they did Remo Williams with Fred Willard instead.
You got anything else?
Earlier on, Matthew Rasko was telling us he picked up most of the issues of the Kingdom Come sequel, The Kingdom.
Okay, let me back it up.
I've never read that. I tried to read Kingdom Come again just last year, and I never liked it to begin with, and I didn't like it in rereading it. So I've never read the sequel.
It's something that if you just couldn't find anything else to read and you found them cheap, you could go ahead and do it. But it depends if you were fans of some of the characters that they brought to light. Let's put it that way. Mark Waid. See, this is what kills me. I saw this a few years ago, but when Kingdom Come came out, Mark Waid made it clear this is Alex Ross's baby. I'm there to funnel it, make it something readable, structure, and probably I'm sure they went back and forth on some of these characters. Last couple of years, all of a sudden it's I think Mark Waid just kept having people assuming he did it, that he just went ahead and was acting like it was his thing. Read Kingdom and you'll see whose baby it was. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, mind the comics. He dropped Rex Mundy out of spite for Badsmen suits designs. Yeah. I understand.
Let me tell you something. When the Trilby hat a couple years ago was the trend with the kids, and they kept calling them fedoras, I never knew that anything in fashion could just make my head blow. I'm like, men know their hats. And I'm like, who's saying this? Is this coming out of me?
You didn't read Glamour Clothes?
Most people like Kingdom Come. I mean, I just don't.
I thought it was okay. It's been a long time since I've read it.
I know some people who that was their favorite comic. They really loved it.
Oh, I love it. I mean, but it's got DC Easter eggs. I think if you're really a DC guy,
right,
that might have something to do with it too. I'm sure. But
also, this reminded me like this is just Marvels for the DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
In the future,
although it's a difference.
Yeah, but, Marvel's built up on everything. Marvel's built up on what Lee, Kirby, Ditko, and all they did in the Silver Age.
Red Mother number 12.
Hal went back to a very young age there.
Is he in? Yeah,
he's back.
All right.
Red Mother number 12. The final. I guess this is the final issue of it. The story ended really good. I really enjoyed this series. This one ended better than I think Big Girls did. We finally got all our answers to what was going on. Well, we didn't get all our answers. We got most of the answers. She confronted, the red. At the end of last issue, there was this sort of mystical rite thing where our lead character ended up being led into this. There's this whole ceremony, and the Red Mother showed up and was going to do something with her. Yeah, but I like good DC, just not, mediocre DC. But like most people like Kingdom Come, so you know.
Oh no, okay, I'm with Mind the Comics on this one now. That's what they've done. Oh wow. Okay.
Oh yeah. He suits really bother him when they're not drawn right.
Do you know why?
I just ignore it.
Or men's suits and shirts are buttoned the way they are.
I used to know this. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
It said they could draw a sword with one hand and unbutton their shirt with the other.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Oh yeah, but like I said, Red Mother. I think that's the end of the story. They should be collecting it all now in one 12-issue volume. I say give it a read.
Okay. That's good. I'm going to throw up two real quick and save the good one for last. But this was something that I picked up. That it's fun, even though you really just turn your brain off and read Superman in Exile. This was a leftover plot where John Byrne left DC, and supposedly he had a little bit of he gave them sort of a little timeline of what he wanted to happen after if he had stayed on the book. Superman killed a bunch of Kryptonians, the Silver Age villains of Zod and all them, on another universe, if you will. It's a long story, and he has guilt, and he actually started dressing up like a street level fighter. Went nuts a little bit. So his answer was to exile himself into space. So there's some good stuff in here once you get out of the premise of why he's doing this. You get past the first issue or two and it gets really good. But that's the late 80s. It leads up to George Perez coming on Action Comics writing and drawing the characters. And then if you like Vampire Hunter D, they have this little hardback book. This is the art book for Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, little tiny hardback. So if you like Vampire Hunter D, there's all kinds of stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. In Friar Tuck, I did read 90 Starman, but I read it when they came out with the omnibuses about, 10 years ago now? I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I read it when they first were published, and they were really good.
Yeah, but I didn't read it when it first came out.
That and Commandy go back and forth as my favorite series. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then another thing I picked up, another last issue, and this is Kaiju Max Season 5, Issue 6. They do, this is Xander Cannon. They do, I think, 6 issues. It must be a year. And they call them seasons. So this is, I guess year 5, season 5. And it's all built around giant monsters in prison. And there's usually kind of a different theme to it. Like I remember the first, I didn't pick it up until season 2. And that first series was about like a kaiju on parole. And then I think the next series was they were in a bunch of kaiju in prison. This one is kaiju in prison and like kaiju in court. So there's like a lot of courtroom scenes. And like the courtroom scenes are all take place in this virtual environment because all these people are from all around the world and all around the like these like in this one, these special aliens came down to this courtroom just to try and free this kaiju who was framed 30 years ago for a crime he didn't commit. So it's like it does some really wild stuff with this. And I am not a big kaiju fan, so I don't get all the Easter eggs. But my friend who is gets them all, and he's like, "This thing has got Easter eggs all over it." Gotcha. If you're a kaiju fan, so that's kind of interesting.
Nice. Well, after being that guy for years and years and years, who I would see an issue of Mr. X here and there in dollar boxes, never picked it up, just to find out everybody in the world apparently knew about it.
Yeah,
I finally got
all us hipster indie guys from the 80s. Like
there you go, man. Yeah, yeah. The book that influenced Tim Burton's Batman and Dark City and something else and all this stuff. Yeah. But I finally got one. I couldn't get over how small it was. This is a Dark Horse trade called Condemned. So it's, later, much later than when it started out. But I was really impressed. I was taking my time reading it. Basically what I'm getting is the premise is Mr. X designed this whole city, all the buildings, to where structurally everything was supposed to make everybody feel like they were living in bliss, but it's actually made everybody in the city crazy. They just don't know it.
Right. Yeah.
So in this one, the city, they trick you. They think there's a big invasion by these Iron Giant robots. Turns out that's the demolition crews.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a nod to the Iron Giant. Scott, do I have to say it? You know what I'm saying? You know.
I don't. What's the publication date on that? Do you know?
That's probably 2010, like around 2010. I think that one was right.
It's definitely 22.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because I was just wondering. I was thinking I know there were some stories that may have came out before the Iron Giant came out. I wasn't sure.
That's the Dean Motter written and drawn stuff.
But
2008, 2009.
Okay.
So basically, they're condemning it in the first issue. I like how Mr. X is just introduced, like everybody's doing this. They're talking the town politics. The crews are coming in and stuff. And at the last page, Mr. X is back and what are you doing to my city? This is my art you're destroying. And I'm like, I don't even know what Mr. X can do.
Well, the thing with Mr. X too is you can't turn off your brain and read it. You have to pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, the house is empty. So, wife's got the night shifts, but you can't have distractions. I can tell. It's I'm trying to think. I'm losing the word here, but it kind of tricks you. It looks so simple with its black and white and all this stuff, and it tricks you. Right. It's not.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Look at this. People are wanting more.
Hey, I actually have. It's not a comic, but I have something you guys may be interested in. I know you do, Tim.
Count Von Strange.
I got this. This is the complete work print of Spinal Tap. So this is 4.5 hours of footage. So there's I haven't watched it yet, but I know about it. So there's footage on here that became edited down into the versions you see in the movies. So
you buy that only if you want to edit together your own version of Spinal Tap.
Well, I bought it just because I'm a huge Spinal Tap fan.
So I have a question. Question. Okay. Lenny and Squiggy came out with an album in 1979, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lenny and Squig Films.
Yeah. They actually made it on American Bandstand with their 50s band, and they planted some of their, I don't know, their wives or girlfriends out in the audience, right. And they had taken Laverne and Shirley's clothes, and they were out there acting like it was the 50s and stuff, right?
Right.
And they, I love, it's cool. But anyway, is it Nigel? That's the guitar player for Spinal Tap.
Yeah, Nigel Tufman.
He's a part of that band. He's on the American Bandstand with them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I'm wondering.
I mean, they kind of did the same motif when they did A Mighty Wind as well.
Okay.
It's basically Spinal Tap, but in the trappings of folk music.
Blow like the wind.
You know, one of my favorite parts about The Mighty Wind is the faces that Parker Posey makes as she's singing. Watch that movie sometime and just watch Parker Posey's face during
My
that.
favorite part of it is I can't remember the character's name, but it's one of the wives, and she's talking about why she got a job in a certain genre of movie making, which I'm not going to go into right now, and because she was willing to do things that other people weren't willing to do. And the look on the guy's face when he realized what she was talking about is hysterical. He's like, what?
Just a good series. And then
God,
I was told this was the hot first issue of the week.
Hot.
Because it's by the writer of Ice Cream Man, W. Maxwell Prince, and Vanessa Del Rey is the artist.
I know that name.
I know it too. I don't know where from. The art was okay, but it didn't impress me a whole lot.
Okay, I'm kind of wondering, the dude that's writing this book in the Ice Cream Man, is he starting to kind of be, I don't want to say cult, that's not the word I'm meaning, but it seems like he's doing his own thing and he's keeping an audience. You follow me? Is that what is that what picking up on? Like he's kind of doing a grassroots following for his stuff?
And you still got me. You might want to put 4 back on it.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I picked that up just because of him, because I've been enjoying Ice Cream Man, and I didn't buy Ice Cream Man till late. I read most of it on Hoopla,
I get it,
and then I started putting it on my pull list. But so I figured I haven't put it on my pull list yet. I just put the first issue. I just ordered the first issue, and I think it's this kind of similar to, well, not really, because I think. Like Ice Cream Man, each issue is a done in one. And you get some backstory about the Ice Cream Man on occasion, but it's really not that important. And in this one, I think each issue is going to be a done in one, kind of about a clown, or maybe a comedian. Maybe he'll expand it. But this is like, we get introduced to this character and she's a clown and all that goes through all this stuff. But then at the end of the first issue, I think was the end of the story. So I'm like, oh, I think he's doing that same thing where each issue is going to be a new kind of, it's like a Twilight Zone. Instead of an anthology we think of in comics where there's 4 different stories in one issue, each issue is its own story.
Gotcha.
With a general overall theme.
Mm-hmm.
Like the theme of Ice Cream Man is horror, and I think the theme of this is going to be. But I enjoyed the first issue. I'll give it a second read before I decide if I'm going to put it on my pull list or not, though.
Gotcha.
Awesome. I have a Spinal Tap question, so I can move forward, and play with you guys and stuff. But is it Majesty of Rock? We're in the middle of it. He kind of gets all philosophical, like, are we not this, and that doesn't do that, and do we do this? The Majesty of Rock, the Majesty of Roll. Is that the song? Came out around the same time as school.
I really don't remember.
Oh, man. All right. Okay.
What amazes me most about Spinal Tap is how many people don't really get the "it goes to 11" joke.
Oh, I've heard you talk about this.
Yeah.
There are some other subtle jokes in the movie a lot of people don't get either.
Yeah, because the joke of "it goes to 11" is it doesn't really go to 11. There's just the mark. There's no. For those who don't know the joke, go watch that. It's one of those jokes that's made its way into pop culture.
In the early '90s, VH1, MTV, somebody had a special where all these rock guys were like, first, before they were famous, they thought Spinal Tap was funny. And then things happened where they were like, it's really a horror story. That shit really happened.
I've heard a couple of interviews with certain people say it's a little more real than we'd like for it to be.
But like most of the people I see say this goes to 11, but they're serious. I'm like, no,
they don't get it. Wow.
You don't get the joke. It does nothing really goes to 11 is the point of that joke.
How many fingers do you have? 10.
They just spaced the lines out differently. The amp is no louder than any other amp.
It's one louder.
But see, I'm glad we're saying that we're talking about this face to face because you put this on Facebook. But what got me is they were still part of the joke and didn't know it because they kept going. But it's 11. They were doing Nigel and didn't even know it, but it says
No,
yeah.
you guys don't get the joke.
They were doing the joke and didn't. That's what makes it
Yeah,
funny.
they were
Didn't
just
even
acting
know
it
they
out,
were
didn't
doing the
even
joke.
know it. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, you just let them go. Just let them go. You know.
Yeah, it just amazes me how many people don't get that joke. It's just kind of like,
Well, like I said, I see the humor of they're not getting the joke, but they're being the joke. That's what's
they're
hilarious.
living the joke. Let's see,
The Stonehenge stuff killed me in the movie. The Stonehenge got me.
It's funny. I know exactly where that actually comes from. There was a Black Sabbath.
We do too. It's in England.
No, I'm talking about the small monuments. There was a Black Sabbath tour where they wanted to have these giant, stone monument things. And just like in the movie, they did not make them right. They did not make them to the right specifications. So that's where that was. That's the origin of where that part of it came from. Yeah.
Homesick Pilots #2. I put this one on my poll list after issue 1. And it was funny. I had to read the description of it after I read it in order to go, oh, that's what it's about. Because there's a nice scary monster. Because the first issue was as much about music as anything. It takes place in what, 1993? Yeah, 1993. And Homesick Pilots is the name of the band. And they were like, "Ooh, let's get," and they were fighting with other punk bands in 1993 with Nuclear Blast or something Nuclear Bastards. That was the other one. R.I.P. They died.
That's a good name, Nuclear Bastards.
I like that. I dig it.
It's got to be a.
So anyway, they were the Homesick Pilots were. There's some like famous haunted. What town are they in? They're in.
Is this a punk band going full Scooby Doo on us?
No, Santa Manos. Wherever Santo Manos is. Saint Man? Is that Manos?
Hands of Fate? What?
Wherever there's like a famous haunted house there. They're like, we should have our punk show in the haunted house. How punk is that?
Constantine did that in Newcastle. It didn't go well. But anyway.
Didn't go well here either. Of course, they go up just to recon the haunted house. And there's 3 people in the punk bands, 2 dudes and a woman. And the woman gets taken over by the haunted house. And which I didn't realize was happening in the first issue until I read the description. The haunted house is haunting her. So like at the end of the issue, you see her going out somewhere. So this second issue is all about her trying to retrieve a horseshoe that was haunted. Like a ghost haunted this horseshoe. And we get that, once again, this is kind of like Ice Cream Man in that this is a done-in-one story about her retrieving this horseshoe. And you get to learn about the woman who got this horseshoe. It gives her nothing but good luck. But it like cuts her off from society. It gives her such good luck. It hasn't rained on her in 3 years. She's got like this boyfriend who's like the handsomest, nicest guy in the world. And she's like, but I know it's just a horseshoe. I know if I kick him to the curb, there'll be another handsome, really nice guy to take his place. And so she, like after 3 years of this, she's feeling nothing. But she can't get rid of the horseshoe.
Right.
She even tried to kill herself in a car accident. But the horseshoe saved her. And the cop after the car accident was even like, oh, here, found this horseshoe in the back seat of the car. You better take this. I bet it brought you good luck. So it's like she can't escape. So it's like it was this really weird story about this haunted horse. And like I said, the punk rock girl from Homesick Pilots is trying to get this horseshoe from her. The horseshoe, it's just a really weird haunted.
I know you were going to say horseshoe, but it came out this haunted whore. But
that's funny because have you noticed
best of the horseshoe
everybody on YouTube in Canada and on the West Coast can't say horror? They say whore.
I've seen it for years. I never thought about it being a regional thing, but
it's a regional thing. It's everybody in the West Coast, and if you're from the West, everybody in the East Coast said horror, and everybody I've heard like people in the West Coast say it's not horror, it's horror. It's like, well, then why don't you ever say horror? You always say horror.
I don't know if it's Boston, Brooklyn, New Hampshire, or whatever it is, but they say horror and horror the same way. Horror. The same way. They do it the same way. And,
it's like, so many videos I watch, like, oh, I'm a big horror fan. I really love horror movies. Then I'm like, you don't even hear what you're saying.
I can kick myself. I mean, you're absolutely right, and I've seen it, but I never thought about making it a bit. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's funny. I was watching.
I first noticed it when I first heard some West Coast people say it's not horror. You East Coast people are always saying horror. It's horror. I'm like, then I started noticing they never say horror.
That's all.
They narrow it down to one syllable. But Homesick Pilots,
maybe where their heads exploded.
There are places in England where they pronounce Mary, Mary, and Mary in 3 different ways.
Oh, wow.
I was watching a video a while back, and it had Geezer Butler, the bassist for Black Sabbath, and I just listened to it, and he said the word boogie, but he didn't pronounce it as boogie. And I've noticed this is an English thing. They say boogie. And it just went up my spine when he did it. Like, that's just wrong, man.
We were watching something where they had one British actor on it, and they were supposed to say aluminum, and it came out aluminum, or I don't know how they did it.
Aluminium.
It's aluminium.
Aluminium.
Yeah, we were like rewinding it and stuff, and I always thought that was a big too. That's really how they say it.
Yeah,
that's normal for them. And by the way, the horseshoe ghost told her she had to track down 7 objects. So I guess that's how long this series is going to last until she tracks down 7.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, I don't know if it's Irish or if it's Appalachian or what it is, but all you have to do is hang the horseshoe up over your over a door. Yeah. And if you leave it up, all the luck will stay in. But if you let it fall down, it all runs out. So
I'd heard that as a kid. And I thought that
those rules don't apply to haunted horseshoes.
Did she try it? No.
Oh yeah, she. Like I said, she tried getting rid of the horse. She couldn't even. What was interesting was she couldn't. The homesick pilot's girl. The horseshoe didn't want to go back with her, so she had to fight this horseshoe haunted woman so it's like the ghosts inside the homesick pilot girl had to fight the ghosts inside the horseshoe to bring the horseshoe back to the house. Because the horseshoe didn't want to go back. The horseshoe ghosts.
Nice.
So it was good. Really enjoyed Homesick Pilots. Cool. Good stuff.
What's that's going to show up? This says Comic Tim. So hold on a minute. I'm gonna do a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna turn my head up. I should have. I was going to tape it up here so I'm Comic Tim, but but anyway, I turned around and for some odd reason, out of the blue, I wanted to read this. Right, I bought the first 2 issues off the rack in 1985ish, 86, for $12 to $16 raw. You can find them in dollar boxes, and people are stupid, but for leaving them there because they're $12 to $16. But anyway, I found this trade for $1 a couple years ago, so I didn't have to dig them out. But it's the Alan Moore story. Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow?
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I'm serious now. It holds up.
Yeah, I read it recently. It's really good.
Yeah.
You know it doesn't hold up? That just reminded you saying you bought it in 1984 or whatever. Like I said, I was mostly a Marvel kid growing up. I didn't start buying DC comics until the New Teen Titans. And all those Marvel guys moved over to DC, so I was reading a bunch of DC comics at the time. And one of the DC comics that I read, and I'd mentioned before, I was never a Carmen Infantino fan, especially like late 70s Marvel fill-in Carmen Infantino. I just, But for some reason in the early 80s, probably because, comics were cheap and there were so fewer of them than there are now, right. I was buying The Flash off the racks. The Trial of the Flash with Carmen Infantino. I think is some of the actual better, if you're going to buy like late 70s, early 80s Carmen Infantino work, that's not bad for it. And I remember buying it, and The Trial of Flash, I think, went on for like 24 issues.
Yeah,
because
because Christ and
they knew they were going to kill him in Crisis.
So they were like,
so the writer
yeah.
Was Carrie Bates still writing at the time?
I could grab it right behind me. Go ahead and keep talking.
I think it was Carrie. The writer of The Flash just decided, well, I may as well I want to see how long I can stretch out this Trial of the Flash story for. So he did. Stretched out for 24 issues. That was part of the fascination with me buying it month to month was how long can the story possibly go on? So anyway, cut to probably in the early 90s, I got rid of my Trial of the my Flash issues. I was never going to read them again. I'm like, I barely liked them the first time. And then I think it was sometime in the early 2000s, they really started going up in price because nobody bought them. Nobody bought the last 2 years of Flash because it wasn't that interesting. So now if you want a complete Flash volume, whatever volume that was, there we go. If you want to complete that, like those issues go for like $10 a piece now. They're not easy to find. Nobody bought them.
I think I have 2 copies of Flash 350, the last one, and I think I have 2 copies of 325 and 324. And what started it all is he killed the Reverse Flash. Basically, what it comes down to.
So anyway,
came back, and
I got rid of my issues. Yeah, I got rid of my issues in the early 90s. Like I said, I was never going to read them again. Then probably sometime in the early 2000s, maybe the mid when I read somewhere that they had gone up in price, I was like, for some reason, I all of a sudden wanted to read them again. I was like, oh wow, I wish I could find those somewhere cheap. Oh man, and for like 6 months, I was like, I really want to. I mean, are they really? I mean, are they interesting at all? Because the only thing I remembered about them was that I found them a little bit interesting in the early 80s, but not interesting enough to keep. So, I was looking at, I never found them for cheap, so I bootlegged some digital scans of them I found. I didn't make it through one issue when I went.
Wait. Do that again. Do it again.
Now I remember.
I can't do it. I can't do that on command.
Didn't make it through one issue. I was like, now I remember why I got rid of these. Holy cow, they're not good.
As a 10-year-old reading this, 10-year-old, I was like, oh my God, something's actually happening to them. This wasn't like some Kurt Swan Superman story. And I'm not saying I was in love, but I'm like, oh, he can't be dead. And then they have a freaking funeral, and like this is right on the cover. Yeah. The Rogues Gallery came and got the damn body and did a eulogy and then blew shit up. And I'm just sitting here like, wow, 10 years old. Yeah. Then we have the Talking Apes, Solomar and all of them. We got Gorilla Grodd coming back. And then all of a sudden they're going to take his mask off in court. I'm like, he's the Flash. Why is he even doing this? Then they take his mask off. It's not Barry Allen. It's some dude that looks like the Punisher with a flat top. I'm like, what's going on? They gave him plastic surgery and all this stuff. Then they disappeared from the racks. Like the last 7 issues, maybe, never were on the spinner rack. Never. Years before I got to find out what happened. I mean, he was dead before I got to read the rest of the story.
You'd mentioned the Reverse Flash earlier. Shouldn't his name been Wally East?
But Barry Allen's the Flash, man.
I'm saying Wally West.
Well, that cured me of. Though I still wish I kept. That's one of the series I wish I kept, only because I can never get them back again.
Oh yeah.
I don't actually ever want to read them again.
About 10 years ago, DC put out one of those phone books, those showcase black and white showcases with the Trial of the Flash.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So it's a cheap way of getting all the issues, and you won't miss the color.
Now again, I want to read. Now, well, let me tell you. I mean, we're hyping this up a little bit, either we know it or not. You know what I'm saying? So I want to put out there to my 10-year-old self, this was still good. You know what I mean? Like I was looking just because stuff was actually they were actually doing things to the character that you couldn't reverse back. People were staying dead. But like you, when I tried to reread it when I was a little bit older, I was like, "Oh wow, man!"
Yeah.
What year did you say that came out? That was like early '80s, right? That
83.
So I was 18 when it came out, or so 17, 18, 19. I was fascinated by its kind of weirdness. because it was weird. It was weirder. I mean, it was a.
Yeah, it's
You
got
just
a
don't have
tone.
a story stretched out like that.
It's got it. It has its own atmosphere. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But my whole deal was I could not stand this guy Carmine Infantino's art in this thing. It was killing me. I'm like, it's that dude who did Spider Woman. Oh, I'm like,
And that was good Carmine Infantino art. That was the good stuff.
Do you remember his fill-in issues of the Avengers? After George Perez, you get Carmine Infantino. Why?
That's when I stopped buying the Avengers. Right after issue 200, it was true. First of all, the Avengers was at one of its peaks with the George Perez and John Byrne stuff.
Yeah. Following up the Korvac saga.
Right. All the pre-Corv, the Perez stuff from when Perez first premiered around issue 146 or something, all the way up to the beginning of the Korvac saga. Then the end of the Korvac saga was not that good because George Perez didn't draw it. And then John Byrne took over again. It took over and it got good again. And then somewhere around issue 200 was just such a clunker, even though Perez, I think, drew it. Yeah. And then after that, it was like Infantino took and Gene Colan did some terrible. I just bailed on the Avengers.
I think in my opinion, it took 5 years before it recovered. Honestly,
I never bought it again. So I'm
all I understand is Conan is in the Avengers now, and I'm never going to read it.
Yeah. The Brazilians went right over that part with Gene Colan art. They went straight from 200 with to Rogers to the Trial of Yellow Jacket storyline. After they didn't even show the issues where Yellow Jacket slapped the Wasp. They just went straight to the divorce.
I get they were trying to be social, but in a comic book world, I saw the Wasp take worse. You know what I mean?
Like I said, I understand what they were doing, but it was just weird in the context of a superhero story where you punch each other all the time.
Wait a minute, Tom Bagley's in the house. The trial of the Flash lasted 2 freaking years. Carrie Bates kept getting told to extend it along with Crisis was being constructed. And that's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting at.
That's a comic book equivalent of a drone solo because somebody else's equipment has failed.
They had this one character. Oh my God, he was like a giant baby. I can see him in my head. I think he ended up being part of the and he got used in the Giffen DeMantis league. Anyway, he was hanging out. I can't think of what his name was, but he was like he was intellectually delayed, but he was a mechanical genius. They even had him pop in there, I think.
But that wasn't Paranax the Fighting Fetus, was it?
Oh, I can't think what his name is. Brother B. It starts with a B. Anyway, but this right here, what's cool about this trade is for people who don't know what this is that we're going back, Crisis was coming. They were going to reboot Superman for his 50th anniversary, and they were going to give him a goodbye, like a last Superman story before, everybody got rebooted around, those in 86, 87. So they were trying to get Jerry Siegel. They finally get the complete story because Alan Moore claimed that he was meeting with an editor who I thought was Dick Giordano. And when they were telling him what they were going to do with Superman, he's claiming he reached over the table and pulled the guy down and said, "You're going to let me do this story. I have to do the story," and pretty much threatened him. It was a little bit different because I think it was Paul Cooperberg he did that too. But they tried to get Jerry Siegel to come back to do the last Superman story, and he was going to do it, but they don't go into what stopped him of some legality that he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So they put this in the last, Superman issue and Action issue, Kurt Swan, George Perez, and all this stuff. But it's freaking fantastic, man. Yeah. I loved it as a kid. I've read it here and there. I've got the issues. I'll grab them out of dollar box. There's 2 issues. I'll grab them out of dollar boxes, give them a home. But it just really amazed me. Here it is, like 35, 36 years later, and it's still fantastic. It is still so good.
It is real moving, that story. That was the one that made me realize Superman didn't need a relaunch. He needed a good writer.
Yeah. I can go with
that's
that.
True of pretty much any character. You get the working on it.
I love my Byrne Superman, but you're correct on what you just said with that, and I'm agreeing with you. So yeah,
Comic Shop Weekly. I have to show this thing that's gonna make Tim and Scott lose their minds a little bit.
Oh God.
Teenage John Constantine for the young adult market.
That doesn't really. I'm neutral. Yeah. Tim just disappeared. You killed him. He died.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
And you know,
He's afraid to show his face.
I want a positive show, but
let me give you the title. I'm like, is this a April Fool's joke in January? The name of the title is The Mystery of the Meanest Teacher, a Johnny Constantine graphic novel.
Johnny Constantine.
Now I'll give you the description. Here's the description. After angering a number of hostile spirits in England, 13-year-old magician Johnny Constantine has to find a way out of the country. Persuading his parents to send him to America, John arrives at the Junior Success boarding school in Salem, Massachusetts. But once there, he finds himself to be something of an outcast, and he is convinced that his homeroom teacher really has it in for him. The Mystery of the Meanest Teacher, a Johnny Constantine graphic novel by Ryan North and Derek Charm.
Now I can just see an old style comic book ad for this, where whatever vehicle that John Constantine had would have been done by the company called Johnny Lightning, and then you had the Johnny Lightning Johnny Constantine car, and I can just see like a Big Daddy Rock type of artwork for this 60s.
Swinging with Scooter, Johnny Constantine style. He's not freaking Harry Potter. What the hell? Can you imagine some little kid reading this? And all of a sudden they're like, I want a trade of the real stuff. And you get like the kid raping the dead dog.
Tim, do me a favor, take your hat off because I want to see if I can see the steam come up off your head.
There's a vein pulsating. There's a vein. It's. I mean, my head is actually. I'm surprised it's not throbbing like a heartbeat. But yeah,
this takes me back to that video that I saw a month or two ago that we discussed on here briefly about. Is it really a good idea for DC or Marvel Comics to make adult comics and children's comics with the same characters? Is that really a good idea?
No. I will go on a 5-hour rant about it. I will. Just to explain people the concept of trademark.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea, we need comics to bring bring this property to younger readers. Dude, I started reading Captain America with Vermin's first appearance, when instead of using the regular cover, they pulled out a panel from inside to use as the cover, with Vermin almost ripping out Captain America's guts, and I was 6. We don't need Johnny Constantine. We don't need Bruce Wayne in high school. We don't need the daughter of Starfire. We don't need any of that. We just need good writing.
And there's a difference between...
Wait, let's see if he's done. I'm loving this. Oh, man, he took a breath. Damn it, I was ready.
There's also a difference between comics that are child appropriate and comics that are for children.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
The
thing is, every time that any of these publishers tries to make a comic for children, it's a comic for idiots.
Yeah.
Because children understand that those stories are idiotic.
Mm-hmm.
They want something that makes them think, that makes them feel something that they're not used to.
That's the way I feel about superhero teen books.
Yeah, that whole concept that they have there, that feels like old men writing for what they think kids are. You know what I mean? It's like the 70s where you saw somebody's dad looking at their kids going groovy. I'm like,
and it wasn't Ash that said it.
Does anyone know what this new DC imprint, Infinite Frontier, is? I haven't read anything about that.
Another one?
I think I read an article online about it coming, and it did not hold my interest. I was trying to see if I can recollect anything, but it's like they have what is that event going on now? Future State. Future State's already been put to the side because they started talking about that. Just like anything that's going on with either company, before one event is over, they're already moving on to the next one.
Yeah, and there was a whole point of we're getting rid of Vertigo because people find imprints confusing, and a week later they announced Black Label, and now we got this one.
I'm really starting to get this idea. I'm going to say this and I'll shut up. The Johnny Constantine thing pushed me over. I'm going to get this out of the way and I'll shut up. Maybe I don't know. But you read these stories about how people who worked in comics would lie about what they did, and people were like, "Oh, that's going to make them juvenile delinquents, and this is garbage and all this stuff." And all of a sudden, we got the Prestige. They got they had some good stuff and all this stuff, and now it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like it's happening 70 years later. Oh wow, Johnny
yanked it right out from under him.
But it's not reading Hellblazer that will lead you to a life of taking drugs and becoming a criminal. It's reading Johnny Constantine.
Well, for the young people, they're going to have to rename it Hellblazer.
If we were going to talk about comics being some kind of morality thing and influencing kids and stuff, if you read John Hellblazer, it would make you stay away from the dark arts because you don't want to get raped by a demon. You don't want to get hypnotized and screw a dead dog in the road. It's bad things happen.
What I'm saying too is you could make like a sort of very adult, not kid appropriate John Constantine as he is, but then when you make a kid book, don't make Johnny Constantine.
We have Tim Hunter. Yeah.
Make something else.
Yeah.
Kid Stranger. I mean, here's the deal too. That the other thing is that I worked with kids for 5 years, so it's not so much I'm preaching or telling anybody how to be a parent, but kids are not stupid. Stop writing stuff that insults their intelligence. You know what I mean? That's one of the more insulting things I saw with that in this kid of Starfire and all this stuff, man. These authors are projecting how screwed up they are, not that they think they're writing for other people and kids that are intelligent. You know what I mean? I've seen it.
This Swamp Thing, I have to laugh at whenever, because I remember a couple weeks ago when we were talking about, someone asked me if I liked Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, and I said yes, but he ended up ruining Swamp Thing because everybody's been copying him ever since. And someone said, we came up with Swamp Thing is now the Green Lantern Corps, the Swamp Thing Corps, because there's so many different.
I remember this talk.
There's the Parliament of Trees and this swamp, and the Swamp Thing of the deserts, and the Swamp Thing of this planet, and the swamp. So I was reading the description of this, and it said, Swamp Thing #1 kicks off a 10-issue series that stars Levi Kamei as the next Guardian of the Green. That was just like that. They really are the Green Lantern Corps. Do they have rings?
You know what? Here's what's cool about
they have growth rings.
Yeah. Here's what's cool about Swamp Thing that kind of saves it from that a little bit is you got the Lynn Weenie, Bernie Wrightson years. You know what I'm saying? You got the Mark Pasco stuff, but then you got the Alan Moore stuff, followed by the Rick Vetch stuff, followed by the fill-in guys, then the Nancy Allen Collins. If you go by creator, you've got your little chunk there that hasn't been ruined. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the positive I can find out of that. Daggone Paolo, you need to go off again, man. For a while. And now it's like he's not going off again, and we lost 3 people.
I was just remember last week I downloaded a couple of episodes of the Epic Marvel podcast because they were going over the Epic collections in the Sandy's Daredevil, and it's like what Jared said about people just wanting to do Alan Moore's Swamp Thing again. And Anna Sandy came right after Frank Miller's Born Again, and she did something that was completely different from what Miller was doing. Miller was that hard-boiled hardcore crime that sounded very that looked very raw and realistic. And Massani ended up taking Daredevil on a mystical ride, a mystical journey of spiritual self discovery, and it was completely different from anything that had been done in Daredevil up to that point. It was, most important of all, it was completely different from the way that people who had now discovered Daredevil through Frank Miller's eyes, and it worked very, very well. So yeah, you don't have to do Frank Miller's Daredevil, and you don't have to do Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. Of course, we also get the problem that they don't want to do Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, and they turn it to the Grim Swamp Thing core.
Hey guys, keep going. I got to check on that matter I told you before the show.
Okay.
Right back.
So I don't know exactly what the formula for success is.
Yeah.
Because
I think that may be a problem is you rely so much on formula.
Yeah.
That you're not doing anything.
Well, you want to copy what's popular, and what's popular, your influencers are often what's popular. So
yeah.
But here's another thing I got this week that I forgot to show. I showed this off on my haul video. This is Berlin by Jason Lutz, Volume 3, City of Light. And it's funny because, have you guys read Berlin by Jason Lutz?
Just the first volume, and that's been several years back. I haven't read the second series yet.
Berlin is one of those series that I'm afraid to try because everybody says it's the best. And then
it's really good.
Well, I like this.
I wouldn't call it the best, but it's good.
Yeah, if you like history, it's especially good because it's about the Weimar Republic in Germany in 1931 to 1933. But this particular volume, I have all the individual issues of this too. I was buying, but I think there's 22 issues of it, and it ran from 1996 until 2018.
Yeah.
So it was like that's an average of one issue a year. And I don't even think there were some years you didn't even get an issue.
Well, that's kind of a European model of doing things.
Yeah, but they weren't even big European albums on this issue.
Right.
They were regular. They were like 20.
Yeah, I have the old ones. I have the floppies.
Right, and if it wasn't for my comic shop being so good, I never would have gotten all the issues because they came out so irregularly. But I also bought I think Volume 1 of this set came out in 2002, and Volume 2 came out in 2010, and then when the series wrapped up in 2018, they immediately came out with it all in one volume, as you would expect. A big 500 page, however many 100 pages volume it is, and I was like, oh, I hope they come out with Volume 3 because I don't want to. I already have Volume 1 and 2. I don't need all in one volume. And so finally, 6 months later or something, they came out with this, and I put it on my Amazon wish list and just never got it. And finally I was like, you know what, before that goes out of print and becomes impossible to buy, I may as well get it. Because I think it was cost me $20. It's got a $30 price tag. I think it cost me $20 with shipping. And you can get all of it in one volume for about $30.
That's good.
So I was happy to finally get Volume 3, just to put it on the shelf and read it sometime. It's in 2018 I reread the whole series when the last volume. It's good. It's if you like it's slice of life stuff, but during one of the most dramatic periods of human history, slice of life stuff. So
that's a really good example of something I'd read so long ago that I would have to go back and reread it to remember exactly what happened.
Yeah, because so much of it was, it was people trying to get on with their everyday lives, but they're living in Berlin as the Republic is collapsing and the Nazis are taking over slowly but surely. So it's interesting, and he's so good at it. He's so good at just presenting life to this, bringing to life this time period from so long ago to us. So good stuff. Pick up Jason Lutz, Berlin. Did he also do? Yeah, one of my favorite things he did. Did you read The Fall by Brubaker and Lynn and
No.
Jason Lutz? It was
So I'm not familiar with anything he's done outside of Berlin.
He did. First thing I remember him doing was Jar of Fools.
I know the title, but I never read any of it.
He got it's good. He got a Xeric grant for that.
Yeah.
I think way back when, and there was two volumes of it. I'll have to figure out where it is, but that was pretty good. That was just a story. I forget the exact story. It was these street people doing stuff. Once again, it's sort of slice of life stuff. And then at the time, this is since he started this in '96, this has to be early '90s. Before Ed Brubaker was a big mainstream comic writer, Ed Brubaker was one of these autobiographical cartoonists. So Ed Brubaker he was an indie guy, and he used to draw too and put out these cartoon. He did a few of them that I picked. I forget, Low Life, that was the one, written and drawn by Ed Brubaker. But then after his sort of indie cartoonist period, he started writing crime. He started wanting to write crime comics. And one of the first crime comics he wrote was serialized in Dark Horse Presents, Volume 1. And Jason Lutz drew it, and it was called The Fall.
Yeah, I have several issues of Dark Horse Presents that have those in them.
And it was just kind of about this, once again, slice of life thing, crime, about this guy who kind of stumbles onto this murder and kind of gets involved with it.
Memory I hadn't thought about in years.
Yeah. So that's the stuff Jason Lutz has done. Jar of Fools, Berlin, in The Fall.
Okay.
Not to kind of shoehorn this in, but Wizard Magazine back in the day did an article where they lined up 4 writers, like the usual suspects, for the picture for the article and stuff. And it was Azzarello, Bendis, Brubaker, and some 4th guy, because they were all doing crime comics, like it was a renaissance.
Yeah,
right. It's because of that article I get all four of them mixed up with their work. I'm like, who wrote this? They all. And
what's funny, the first crime comic that Ed Brubaker wrote for Vertigo, I think it was, called Scene of the Crime. It was like, it was funny because I had been reading his stuff for a little while before he kind of went mainstream, and I enjoyed his crime comics. But like the first sort of mainstream crime comic he wrote, I didn't like very much. I was just kind of like, wonder what happened there. Wonder why I don't. I'll have to go back and reread that one. Yeah, I think it's called. And like Michael Lark or somebody drew it.
Around the early 2000s or whatever it was. I don't know. Like I said, I get the other stuff. A book that was actually kind of hot, and they ended up making a movie, and it was like the movie I don't think did well and stuff, but it was Whiteout. And then it was also Torso.
Yeah, it was Steve
Lieber.
Okay. Torso and Whiteout. People were crazy for those books back in the day in the shops. And I want to say this is like before the internet really blew up with where you could find this stuff, man. But everywhere I went, every convention I went, that's all they were talking about.
Tommy Bagley, that's the other one. An Accidental Death by Brubaker and Eric Shanower, the guy who does Age of Bronze.
Yeah.
That was one thing. It was a crime comic that I think it was, once again, I think it was DHP.
Actually,
that took place in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, on the American base.
Yeah, that Accidental Death story he's talking about is the one I was thinking about. That was
okay. You're mixing that up with The Fall,
yes,
right? Okay.
Yes,
and so that was another one that was good. That was his pre-scene of the crime and his mainstream breakthrough that I enjoyed.
Yeah, this kind of variety, I don't know, I don't want to say it's missing from comics, but it used to be you'd have these eras where you can get into like certain genres like that. If you wanted crime comics, you had a ton to pick from.
Sure.
Stuff like that. I kind of think that's kind of missing a little bit, because I mean, we're sitting here talking about stuff from 20 to 25 years, and it's like it holds up, Yeah.
That reminds me of let me check my notes here. I wrote down a line.
Let me consult.
Paolo sent out a link to a video. Paolo sent out a link to a video this week of that new book that's out of Forgotten Black Comic Creators.
Yeah.
Interesting video. I'm going to have to get that book. But one of the lines one of the guys said, it was written by a guy who is like a comic book historian guy. I forget his name. and they were interviewing him about the book, and they were talking about comics in general. When they started talking about movies, I skipped ahead. But one of the lines he said, and because he was talking about, this guy is older than me, so I think he was one of the early. He started being like really into being a comics fan and into comics history in like the mid to late '60s. So he kind of was like he even said at one point, he's like, well, there were comics fans before us, like EC Comics fans. So he's probably like around the second generation of real comics fans out there who really cared about the history of comics and everything. And so and one of the things he said was that comics don't follow, because in those days, like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, comics followed trend. If horror comics were big, Marvel would be making horror comics, and so would St. John and everybody else. If romance comics were big, everybody would be making romance comics. But comics don't follow trends anymore. Comics are really a boutique publishing now, which I thought was pretty interesting. Because I think that's true. Comics now, there's no real trends to follow. If you're Marvel or DC, you publish superheroes for the superhero crowd. You try to find other stuff like, young Constantine, Johnny Constantine for the YA crowd. But mostly, and then I got the thing with that Johnny, I think the young adult comic stuff follows trends more than Marvel and DC comics do.
Hey, I'll tell you something. I mean, if you want a trendy book, you don't want to buy your Archie, get some Swinging with Scooter. That turned more and more into Archie as it went along. I'm telling you.
What book is that, did you say?
Swinging with Scooter back in the 60s.
Swinging with Scooter.
Yeah. Hey, I got a few of those. I actually enjoyed that.
Those are the teens follow trends comics. Those are those. Like you said, when Archie became big, all of a sudden every company had their Archie. But that doesn't happen anymore between Marvel and DC. First of all, they've copied everybody's heroes so much that, Marvel has, 12 versions of Superman, and DC has their versions of Spider-Man too.
Alex Ross, actually, I think when he was, I don't know what it was, again, I'm going back to Wizard tonight again, right? That's where I saw it. But they showed some stuff where Alex Ross is a bit of a historian for this stuff, right? But he went through and he drew all the Superman archetypes, if you will. And he was like comparing their hairstyle and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I think he was doing it so he could do oh my God, I'm going blank. The Samaritan in Astro City or something.
Yeah.
So he didn't rip off any of the other archetypes. And it just amazed me, all the people, when you see them all together, that have been copied from at Marvel, where they copied Superman. Blew my mind. I was just sort of like, I didn't know there were that many,
Yeah,
there are.
The only one I really give them a pass on is Hyperion. That's just flat out, hey, we're doing our Superman, and they did some cool stuff with them. Even people don't realize they even did a Bizarro Hyperion, a little wink and a nod to it in that Squadron Supreme miniseries in the 80s.
What I find interesting about all that swapping they did, Marvel and DC, with is that, like, stealing DC's are so much older, they're more like archetypes, so you can say something about them. Like, if you steal Superman, you can say something about the big strong man archetype.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Marvel's characters are more about their personalities. So if you steal Spider-Man, which they've done, I mean, they've tried to do that teen hero thing.
This like 4 or 5 years ago, yeah.
But it really doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't. You really can't play off. It's like DC can't. No, can you think of any of like DC's Marvel swipes that are in any way resonate with people? That have been successful?
No. They don't exist. I mean, nobody cares when they do those.
Not even Ragman?
What?
Not even Ragman?
No, the guys that won Gina and Blue Jay, nobody cares about in the Silver Sorceress. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Even when they...
Go ahead.
I'm trying to think of the latest one that was like Spider-Man. Was it Blue Beetle with the New 52?
They try to do a Peter Parker type character with Blue Beetle magic powers now. But
right.
They had one called Sideways, I think it's what it was called, where you knew it was Peter Parker. And Jared, I want you to prepare yourself because this was the 90s. You may have been at Marvel. I don't know. So just prepare yourself. But because I'm going to use a strong word here, the most pathetic swipe I ever saw by Marvel, in my opinion, is when they swiped Spawn and came out with this book called Night Watch or something.
Oh,
it was so blatant and bad. I'm like, who approved this? It's one thing to swipe a character, but this is the book you're putting out, and this is 90s Marvel. This is right when we were getting over the peak, if you will. You know,
they were trying to copy the most successful book out there.
And now, for some reason, I think it's where I said 90s. I have a Darkhawk update. Yes, Marvel did renew the trademark or something, but it wasn't for a movie or TV show. It was just to keep the printing trademark. They're going to have a one-shot amount of Darkhawk. Right. So all the people that ran out there listening to the speculators, you got hit again.
Our lawyers demanded
it. You got hit again, yeah.
Because our lawyers demanded it. That's what
I'm sitting here thinking there is a character that was swiped at one point that did kind of become popular for a little bit but they were doing something totally different. You know what I mean? Like they went sideways with it, and it turned into its own thing, and it'll hit me. It'll hit me.
Like you can swipe Wonder Woman and have something to say, because it's like all those DC characters are their their two-sentence. All those DC characters are their elevator pitch. Batman is his elevator pitch. Superman is, but Spider-Man isn't his elevator pitch. The Hulk isn't his elevator pitch. So it's tough. What are you going to say about what sort of any observations DC may have about the Hulk don't really serve any story purpose.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So it's just weird that's one of the differences.
This Wonder Man lawsuit, they did some trick when they brought Wonder Man back to get around that. I wish I could remember.
Yeah,
it hit me. There was some trick. There was a reason Wonder Man came back. After they killed him in the early Silver Age. That one.
I wonder what it was.
I can't remember.
Because our lawyers demanded it. Do you know? Matter of fact, do you know the reason that the original Human Torch showed up in that FF annual back in the early '60s?
No.
I know this. Go.
Carl Burgos, the original creator of the Human Torch, was about to reclaim the copyright on it because he hadn't appeared in X amount of years. And just before that happened, Marvel stuck him in that annual for just a few pages, and Carl Burgos
66. Another year in the 28 years would have gone by.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I ran across that when they were talking about some article I read about the DC Shazam lawsuit, and then how they got him, let the trademark go, and Marvel used Captain Marvel. Yeah. I never would have remembered that name. Never would have remembered that name. So.
I imagine that the reason that they decided to bring back Wonder Man is because DC licensed Captain Marvel, Shazam, for the Shazam title. It was in '73 that they did it for the first time, right?
Yeah,
and that's when Wonder Man was brought back to life.
I swear I read something they got around something legally. I wonder if maybe that was mixed up with Captain Marvel stuff. But I swear,
because the thing is, Fawcett, the terms of the lawsuit when they decided to call it quits in '53 was that Fawcett couldn't publish Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But they still owned the copyrights. They just couldn't use them to make money. So if DC wanted to use the character, they would have to license it from Fawcett. So that's an admission that there's a valid copyright on a thinly veiled
copy
knockoff. Yeah, knockoff. So that Marvel being Marvel, if DC as to license their knockoff, we can make our own.
Well, I tell you what, Paolo, between what you just said and me looking on my wall, I finally remember the knockoff that became super popular. And it was on my wall the whole time. Miracle Man.
Yeah.
It was staring me right in the face, literally, man. But that was, sorry, guys, I knew it would hit me, but that's the knockoff. The Michelangelo 50s Marvel Man came to Eclipse. Alan Moore got a hold of him, and he became...
I was talking about Marvel characters that DC knocked off. That
right.
Super popular.
This is where my mind was going. I was stuck on the knockoff. The knockoff. That's and where I was stuck on Marvel and DC. That maybe why it didn't click. But yeah, that's the knockoff that I think.
I bet you're not going to have a. Go ahead.
Oh, Tommy Bagley. He's saying he was talking about the Golden Age Wonder Man. Yeah, I remember that one. He got sued out of existence for being too close to Superman, which is funny now because you couldn't do that anymore. I wonder at what point. Because at some point, as I said, in the 40s, DC was suing everybody if someone was too close to Superman. But at some point, that all went away. It's like you couldn't successfully sue. Like if you made a knockoff of Superman now, DC would never sue. There's so many knockoffs of Superman, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
I got a couple of opinions. Go ahead, Pella. Go ahead.
Yeah, in the 1940, it was easy to fix because Will Eisner admitted under oath that Victor Fox ordered him to copy Superman. So, yeah. And let's face it, at the time there weren't so many superheroes with a cape flying around.
Everything was new. I think that was it. Everything was new. So they gave a lot of leeway to national periodicals and Superman. Now, since there's so many superheroes, I don't think they'd get that leeway anymore.
Yeah. Now, I mean, since we're going back to the 40s, the one that I think got by with it for whatever reason was a character named Midnight who looked exactly like the Spirit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I always kind of wondered if there was ever a lawsuit about that, and I never found anything.
See, I think there wouldn't be a lawsuit of that because Will Eisner owned the Spirit.
Yeah.
Which meant that there's no giant corporation behind it.
Okay, I can see that.
I think Will Eisner would say, is this worth my time?
Yeah.
But I don't think it was worth his time and money.
If I had to speculate what you were saying a minute ago about when did it die down where DC and everybody stopped suing each other, my speculation here, right? This is, and it's one of those things I get blown out of water for being wrong. I have no problem with it. It's just my idea, right? But you got Hero Comics died after World War II slowly.
Yeah.
And then in the 50s, the whole industry about went under, seduction of the innocent, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, the guys that work in the comic book company, the big guys, were like doing things like playing golf with each other and stuff. They were becoming friends. And
that story is apocryphal.
Didn't happen.
Martin Goodman never played golf with whoever was the DC guy. The DC guy said that never happened.
It's like you just told me there's no Santa Claus. Anyway, but anyway, things started happening where you had the guys that grew up reading comics. All of a sudden, they were all hanging out together. And then you ended up with things like early Justice League stories and early Avengers stories where you had like the Squadron Sinister pop up, but you had some heroes from another Earth in Justice League the same months. It's like they were having fun with it, making archetypes in each book. Right. And then you had like Roy Thomas and Steve Gerber, Lynn Wein. They started bringing in the Vermont parade that they had up there where everybody would, dressed up like superheroes. And when you look in that, they actually showed the parade. There were people dressed up like Captain America, Spider-Man, and Thor in the Justice League. Then you go over to Marvel, and they'd have people dressed up like cosplayers. It's like they started having fun with it. Everybody started knowing each other, and they were like, maybe they were learning. It
would have to be long before that, I would think.
I think it was a progress. I think it was like an evolution. I don't think it was like one major.
And it also may have
we're not going to do that anymore.
It also may have been because.
Or I got another theory after you're done.
I'm trying to think back to the 50s. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were around, but did any other company have big character individual? I mean, There was lots of licensed. I know Dell was as big as anyone, but they had their own stuff.
I got told by Roy Thomas in the early 2000s at HeroCon about Man-Thing and Swamp Thing. He said there was there was talk, but what happened was it wasn't pursued because Marvel would have to explain where the Man-Thing came from, and they would bring up the heat from the portal. So everybody had their hand in the cookie jar, and they really wanted to go back and forth. People would be digging.
There's a whole book on that. I can't remember the exact title of it, but it's published about 2 Morrows, where they talk about all the swamp-based characters.
Okay. I got that directly from like in year 2000 or 2001 or something, directly from Roy Thomas.
But when you think about it, who would be suing who in the 50s besides DC and Captain Marvel? Were there any other superhero franchises?
No.
I don't think so. And on all the other stuff,
not in the United States.
Yeah, licensed Disney stuff.
The top selling comic at the time was Walt Disney's Comics and Stories.
Right.
Four color comics, periodicals, EC coming up, crime comics, romance comics. I'm going through the whole list in my head.
All that Harvey stuff.
The only superhero thing I can think of that probably has gone on that long was the Phantom, but that was done by Frew Publications out of Australia.
And the Phantom's a comic strip character. Yeah. It was published in the newspapers.
Well, that's how it began, yes. But they actually started doing comic books as well.
I don't know how I came off, but I'm kind of saying what Bagley is saying here. The guys that enjoyed comics growing up got in, were now the guys doing,
But that's creative. I'm talking legal. The legal guys don't care about any of that.
Well,
the legal guys.
Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex. That was a parody.
Yeah, that was written by Larry Niven in the early 70s.
Really? Niven, nice.
Yeah, Larry Niven, the science fiction writer.
And would that be an influence on the way people perceive parodies of superheroes? Because even if you do a serious parody, it's still a parody.
Yeah.
Wally Wood was doing parodies of superheroes in comics format long before Larry Niven was doing written pieces.
Mad Magazine was
Super Duper Man, Prince Violent.
Well, you know what? We may also be giving people in the comics back then a little bit more credit than they deserve, because there wasn't a lot of people that are into comics now that knew obscure characters and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Maybe things got by because nobody noticed or didn't remember. I can see somebody like Roy Thomas. I mean, Roy Thomas was collecting Golden Age comics in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, walking around his neighborhood. Somebody like that could probably catch it. But a lot of these guys, I mean, it was a job. John Buscema didn't even like drawing. He wasn't into comics. He wanted to be a comic strip. Yeah.
But I'm talking strictly the legal guys here. I mean, it was the legal guys who decided to sue Captain Marvel.
Yeah. A popular character.
Right. I'm just saying, I don't think there was, I don't think the legal guys at Archie could sue another company who had a teenage character.
Well, maybe.
I think the only way you could sue was if you had a character who had distinct superpowers.
Well, maybe it also had something to do with it had to get on their radar first. It had to be successful.
It was there. You had to notice it first.
That's kind of what I'm around about trying to get at.
Which is why Eisner probably ignored Dr. Midnight or whatever.
He was just Midnight. I found him in All-Star Squadron 31 when I was 7.
I remember running into him somewhere. I think they just ran out of. There was no one left to sue, so suing became obsolete almost.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to have to get out of this room when we do the shows. I'm starting to notice a lot of what I'm talking about is subliminally hitting my head. I didn't even know this was on my desk. I didn't even know Mr. Miracle or Miracle Man was looking at me. I want to have to get out of here so I can concentrate. But anyway,
I want to make a segue because somebody asked earlier about if me and Paula was going to bring up or show things that we got, and we're talking about characters that were big companies and things. And I got a bunch of these just a couple so weeks ago. These were put out by a company called Nostalgia Ventures, and there you go, it's Doc Savage, and these were all done primarily as double novels, reprinted. They lost the rights to do it when Condé Nast pulled the license, and these books were like $12.95 a piece. I got all these for $1 each. So there's that one. There's the Shadow. There's
slow down. Yeah.
more of the Shadow. Yet more of the Shadow. Yet more of the Shadow.
Oh, I did
And
a
then
lot
we
of
go
shadow.
back to Doc Savage. And more Doc Savage. And yet again, Doc Savage. And believe it or not, more Doc Savage. All those books are $1 a piece.
Oh, that's a good deal.
Yes. Yeah, they were blowing them
Tommy
out.
Bailey says
Yeah.
they were modernized midnight stories in Ms. Tree Quarterly when DC started publishing her. Ah.
Oh, wait. Skip one.
Excellent, Scott.
I just bought them. I didn't read them. I didn't write them. So.
Yeah, I remember that one from the Valencia Football Club is a Spanish soccer team, and their logo kind of looks like Batman if you look at it sideways. Yeah, nothing came of it. I had totally forgotten about that.
Gotcha.
You know the French used to have a parallel comics industry, which was the petit format, where they had digest-sized 100-page comics in black and white, and those were the first guys to publish Marvel and DC in France. And yeah, that's Midnight, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep going, Paolo. Keep going, man.
Yeah, and of course there were a lot of knockoffs of Western characters, and especially Tarzan. And the guys who would eventually publish Marvel in France, Edition Lug, in 1952 they had the rights to a Tarzan clone called Hakim, which was made in Italy. So when they lost the rights to that, they decided to do their own clone, and they hired the Italian artist from the Hakim comic to do their own clone. It was called Zembla. And after Zembla was so successful that a lot of those small publishers all decided to do their own Tarzan knockoffs, so much that it's quite... I'm surprised that nobody from the Tarzan estate went after them, because even the name that they use for Tarzan knockoffs in France, officially in the industry, was Tarzanides.
Yeah, that was subtle.
I feel like there should have been like this big wink in the corner, you know.
Tarzan was actually the first character that had cross-pollination in different media.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just letting you guys know, when we got off the air last week, I had this alert on there, or whatever it is, this little window pop up to let me know that you guys can share the screen also. Just letting you know. I mean, I don't know if that's news to you or not, but yeah.
Here's a question I have. I just saw someone posted, adult graphic novel sales up 16% year over year, and I was looking at the list of top 10 adult graphic novels.
Right.
Adult not meaning pornographic, but meaning for adults.
Right.
And like 6 of them were My Hero Academia, the Japanese one. And I was just like, I don't know that one. But I'm like,
How is that an adult graphic
how
novel?
is that an adult graphic? Is it because it looks to me it's like about a school kid. Like, how is this not in? How is this an adult graphic novel?
It is. It's shonen.
Yeah.
And there was the other one about what was its name? It looked as a fairy tale name.
I don't remember. I'm not.
I saw it. Let me check the Discord. It was. I saw it on a Discord here.
While he's
There's
doing
that one-eyed pirate guy.
2 knockoffs in the Marvel Universe just dawned on me, right? Because they're embedded in the Marvel Universe now, one more than the other, in popularity. You guys remember Nighthawk from the Defenders?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. You had the Squadron, you had the Great Games Master pull the Squadron Sinister out into the Justice League. He was the Nighthawk was actually Batman, and then he floated around for a while. Then he was in a backup feature in a maybe a Defenders or Daredevil annual or something.
Yeah.
And then he became a superhero. So all those years that people were reading the Defenders and there was Nighthawk, it was Batman.
When I was a kid, I always thought he reminded me of Blue Falcon.
Yeah.
Nighthawk was such a
Batman.
whiner. Nobody ever confused him with Batman.
Yeah. But that was just, they wrote him different, of course. But I mean, if you followed the story, got in there, it was Batman existing in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I never discussed, because Defenders was one of the first books I read.
Yeah.
And I didn't know he was a Batman ripoff until I got some of the older stuff later on and saw him like Squadron Sinister or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? That's the worst Batman ripoff ever.
I want to listen to me. I think it's like issue 313 or something of Captain America back in the day. Grunwald was writing the Squadron Supreme miniseries. He had one issue where he had a bunch of these villains who ended up, if you look at them, it's Joker, Penguin, and Catwoman. If you look at them really hard, they popped over in the Marvel universe to try to get help and escape the world. So on the cover of that Captain America, you got Captain America with the shield, and you got like this silhouette where saying they have a surprise guest star, and it looks like Batman. Yeah. But the other one is Speed Demon. I think he was like I want to say he was an Iron Man villain for 5 minutes or something. That's actually the Flash. That's what's wild.
Yeah, but like that's what I was saying. In Marvel, there are lots of copies of DC characters who stuck. But in DC, there's no copies of Marvel characters who stuck.
Yeah.
Prior Texas, my 14-year-old watches My Hero Academia. I actually went on Amazon just to see if they put an age or something with it, and all the reviews were like, "Oh, my little girl loves My Hero." Like, "Oh, my little boy loves." I'm like, "How is this on the adult charts?"
Mine, the comics may have done it. Moon Knight is huge. Like it or not, Moon Knight.
Yeah. That was.
Do you remember the Shroud's origin?
Because not like me bad mouthing DC, but no. If you can name one Marvel character in the DC universe who's of any significance,
there isn't one.
We have to go back and forth on who came first this time. Was it the X-Men or Doom Patrol, or was it Swamp Thing and Man Thing and a few others like that? But
direct copies, not coincidental copies.
Yeah.
Okay, I found that supposedly adult graphic novel. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks more like like a coffee table illustrated book. And it has whimsically childish pictures. I'm going to see if I can share.
I'm starting to get petty here. I'm sitting here trying to think of a Marvel character that Booster Gold ripped off just to cut him down some more, man.
It's like Ghost Rider. He'd be an easy one for DC to rip off. Have they ever ripped off Ghost Rider?
Atomic Skull. That's a Superman villain. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think... Even like the Punisher, didn't DC try to rip off the Vigilante? There's like Punisher, another easy one to rip off, but
you know what? That's a whole other discussion about the Punisher versus the Vigilante. They one's a judge, one's a Vietnam vet. Both their families got killed, but it's.
Did they come out around? No, but even if
they come off two guys who would be buddies because they have a lot in common. That's how I would say it.
Even if the Vigilante was a ripoff of the Punisher, he's insignificant.
Well,
that's what's so weird.
Well,
yeah, well, the Vigilante
Punisher himself is a ripoff of Max Bowen's The Executioner.
Yeah, everybody's a ripoff of everybody. We know that. That's not what we're getting into here.
Vigilante was an experiment by Marv Wolfman to do a realistic world as much as he could in Vigilante. So I get where you're coming from aesthetically if you just kind of look at them and get the idea of them being that way. But they're more like two guys who would probably have a lot in common more than a ripoff of each other.
So you're saying it's more a case of parallel development than ripoff?
I think there's parallel development stuff, which is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about direct ripoffs because they want to use the characters and kind of like when that they wanted to, like, when you rip off Superman, like with the Sentry, you kind of have something to say about the Superman archetype. That's what you're playing with. You're playing with the Superman archetype without Superman.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's that the DC characters kind of are archetype. The DC characters are their elevator pitch. You know, Superman is a strange visitor from another planet.
Right. And
Batman is parents kill. He was orphaned by parents at a young age, and he declared war on crime. The Flash is fast guy.
Well, that's just because they were invented first.
That could be it. That's what I'm saying. But it has nothing to do with their. But Marvel characters are their personalities.
See, it's the other way around. Thanos is huge, and Jim Starlin will flat out tell you he was just doing Darkseid.
Right.
Flat out said it. You know, on his way to go work his first day at Marvel, he was at a bus station and drew out Thanos.
DC rip off Magneto easy enough somehow?
Well, they had magnetic characters before there was even a Marvel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You had
no Magneto. No.
Yeah.
I find it weird.
Dr. Polaris.
I don't know when he came out. I think he's Silver Age, but I know, you know, off the top of my head. I mean, there was I'm thinking some weird names from the 40s off the top of my head. They had like Ultra the Magno Man or something. I don't know.
Well, I think just the fact that you're having to think about it this hard, it kind of proves the point.
Yeah.
But it's like, what would you if you were at DC and you wanted to, like I said, to rip off a Marvel character because you had something to say about that character? Yeah. What character would it be, and what would you have to say? That's the strange. Because what are you going to do?
I would say I have this character named Omac, who's a Captain America of the future, and I didn't want to give it to Marvel, so I brought it here because you're making me draw 15 pages a week, and you keep sabotaging my shit. But anyway,
you're just so traumatized by that image of Omac. So.
But it's like even Captain America, when DC has patriotic characters, but they're just patriotic characters. They're not really. No one says, "Oh, that's Captain America."
Right.
What about guys that rip off themselves? If you want to say rip off, I mean they're the creator. Mr. A, The Question, OMAC, Captain America, things like that. There's people who will just go. The one we keep bringing up where the guy took Night Stalker into two different companies under two different names. Devil Slayer, Night Stalker, whatever the third one was.
Demon Slayer, Devil Slayer.
Yeah.
What was the name of that magazine? Galaxy or Astro or something?
Green Lantern from DC.
Is there anyone with Wolverine claws in DC? Is there anyone with a healing factor at DC?
And again, Dave Cockrum. I mean, the character came out in 1962, but Dave Cockrum did a design on him. Timberwolf was there before Wolverine. Wolverine is a complete Timberwolf ripoff until Byrne and Claremont evolved them more. You know.
Well, Byrne always had him be a Lazarus Long ripoff. His personality. I don't know if you've ever read. He even said that in the early days. If you look at Wolverine, Byrne, Claremont. If you look at Wolverine from like X-Men 94 to maybe 130, right down to the bub is Lazarus Long, a character from a Heinlein novels.
I never knew Lazarus, but I've got an article somewhere here, hopefully still from like the 80s, where Claremont and Byrne were interviewed separately. And they both brought up Lazarus, and then they both also brought up Diana Rigg from the Avengers for what they did with the Black Queen, Jean Grey, stuff like that. They were talking about a lot of their influences, and it was the Avengers and that Lazarus guy and some other movie.
Are there healing factor guys in DC?
I guess.
Because Marvel uses them, the healing factor is used like just so everybody can use their blades, claws, and fangs.
Strangely enough, maybe that was Marvel too. I think the whole healing thing, Marvel either has people that can heal or they heal other people. Raven is an empath who will heal you emotionally.
Yeah. But it's like the whole point of the healing factor, especially in early 90s Marvel, was so those guys could all cut each other up with swords and claws.
I swear, if I wake up at 1 in the morning and I finally have some answers and there's nobody to talk to, I'll be like,
I I don't
That
think
just-
DC's ever really done that I can think of.
That just reminds me of that panel in Ronin where the guy stabs himself, through himself into the guy behind him.
Oh yeah, the new 52 Batman. I read the first 6 issues or such, and that just drove me crazy. This was it Scott Snyder was writing them, would write a cliffhanger at the end of each issue and then just ignore the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And he'd do things like one of the cliffhangers, I think I was listening to, was Batman was fighting that owl guy. I can't even remember his name now, though. Talon. There we go.
Oh, Talon. Oh, my gosh. Oh, you were reading that crap? Oh, my God.
I was reading that crap. I only read about 6 issues of it because I couldn't take it anymore. But the part that made me not be able to take it anymore was once again, and this is kind of, I don't know what this trope is in superhero books. The extremists were the Avengers. That's probably
I'll explain the extremists in a minute. Yeah. But
there was one point where Talon ran through Batman with a sword. A sword right through. They had him show to go right through him. But instead of course, killing him like it would anyone else run through with a sword, it allowed him to focus and channel his energy so he could beat Talon. I'm like, that's not now how sword fights work.
Let me tell you something.
That is also that's work in the World Wrestling Federation.
I want to have to put a star by this very show right here, right now, with what I'm about to say, because comics are doing such stupid things right now with their characters. I'm saying that they are going to end up giving Batman powers. It may be a healing factor or something.
He's already got them.
He's already got superpowers. Yeah. I'm like,
I once read someone said, if you've got an impossible skill set, you've got superpowers. And that's what Batman has, an impossible skill set.
His superpowers, he's always prepared, Yeah.
And once again, part of the Batman mythos that we all accept when we read a Batman story is that guns can't kill him. There'll be some way around a gun. Like in real life, 6 thugs with guns will shoot Batman dead, but not in Batman's world. He finds some way around it. So that's what we accept when we read Batman.
Well, my theory is that DC is just a modern incarnation of the Star Wars universe, and all these guys that can't shoot Batman were the progenitors of stormtroopers.
Yeah. Midnighter from Wildstorm is the best comment on Batman having superpowers. Especially when you have Batman in the Justice League with all of the big guns at the same time. When Midnighter shows up in one fight and says, "I've already fought this fight 1,000 times in my head and I win every time."
Yeah,
that's Batman. Mm-hmm. That is Batman's power.
To me, Batman is one step from Iron Man at all times too.
Yeah,
Deathstroke was a copy of
Captain America
Taskmaster that George Perez created. So talk about guys ripping themselves off.
Yeah.
But in the origin, it was a super soldier like formula that they were going for with him.
Yeah.
I think the design came from George Perez because he just did Taskmaster. Marvel Wolfman's story was Captain America like. Yeah. If Captain America became a mercenary, didn't have a conscience,
But that's still no comment on Captain America either. Deathstroke's kind of his own. His origin may have been a ripoff of Captain America, but he's not a comment on Captain America.
Yeah.
No one who's ever wanted to comment on Captain America has used Deathstroke, as far as I know.
You have Supreme that Alan Moore took over because he liked that Superman. I've heard
his whole thing is a love story to Silver Age Superman.
Yeah. But he still had some comments to say about the few things and their responsibility and it wasn't deep though, but it was there. Right. It was a Silver Age love influenced book, Silver Age like, but still modern for the 90s. I mean, I'm really thinking here, man. I'm saying some things. I'm thinking out loud more than I'm processing what I'm saying before I say it.
Yeah. That's what.
This is what. Oh God, what a topic! I think you got me like this a couple of weeks ago, man.
But it's just. I think that's just strange. It could just be that all DC's characters were created first, and therefore are more like archetypes.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Guys, I hate to do this. I meant to do this 10 minutes ago, but Jared did that thing again. Yeah.
All right, get them talking.
But time for me to wind it up here a little bit. Anybody got any last words or anything? Or
The only thing I have to say is I was just one more thing from here. There's a Lock and Key all-in-one volume thing coming out, 1,000 pages. I'm like, holy cow!
it's worth it. I mean, if you don't have,
I love Lock and Key. I've got the hardcovers up there, but sometimes it's like after that 18-pound giant-sized Kirby, I don't think I want any more big books like that. I mean, that's just too big. Hold on, let me hold it up for you.
let me tell you something. This thing is getting sold as soon as I can. This is bullshit. Screw this.
What one is that?
The vault.
Same
this
thing.
Avengers vault.
Holy cow! And, it's got a slipcase. What is a book this big with a slipcase?
I'll tell you what. Do any of you guys have the complete Calvin and Hobbes? It's like a 3-volume hardcover slipcase set.
I've always meant to get it, but I have them all in soft cover, so I never
drop it on your foot.
Yeah,
you will break your foot.
18 pounds. I weighed it.
Yeah. I have the complete Far Side for like 20
I
years.
have that too.
Yeah, and when I saw that Calvin and Hobbes set, I kept my mouth shut after that. I didn't think they could outdo it. Yeah.
Yeah, I will never own a book that lifting it counts as an Olympic sport.
That doesn't bother me.
Well, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and that's why I keep that thing on.
Unless you're Batman.
Okay, I'm like, comic books killed the boy. They almost took me out 2 years ago. The whole shelf at an Ollie's fell on me, like hundreds of books. I was literally, I'm not exaggerating, I was waist high in books, and they were digging me out. One employee,
Were you like Atlas holding up the shelf?
That looks just like you every time that we go to a comic, show, and you're digging through the boxes there.
Yeah, they got me. They came back at me. This time they came at me this time.
And you couldn't gain comic book powers because you already had them.
See, you say that, and my mind went to flaming carrot. I'll read 1,000 comic books in one sitting, and I'll be turned into a giant flaming carrot.
I like his origin was he read 1,000 comic books in one sitting and became simple.
Ah,
That was his actual origin.
well played.
And that's how he became.
A joke we can laugh about. You can't do anywhere else in the world. It's gonna be right here.
He read 999 issues of Ralph Snort, and that's what did it.
All right, guys. Thanks for popping in here. Good show. Definitely catch it on the rewind. It got juicy in the first 5 minutes. So, yeah. All right. Later, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.